Your children are watching you right now, not with their eyes, but with their behavior. And what they're seeing is teaching them exactly how to treat you. 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a woman named Margaret. Her voice was barely a whisper through her tears. Her daughter had just told her that her constant advice was exhausting, and maybe she should find some hobbies. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Margaret's voice cracked. I raised this girl. I poured my entire soul into her. I gave up my dreams, my friendships, my own life. How did I become the burden? How did loving her so much make me the problem? I could feel her heartbreak through the phone. This wasn't just about hurt feelings. This was about a mother watching the relationship she treasured most slip through her fingers like sand. Here's what I told Margaret. And here's what she did next that made her daughter text her 2 weeks later saying, Mom, I'm sorry. I see you differently now. Can we talk? The strategy I'm about to share with you feels impossible at first. It goes against every instinct you have as a parent. But it works like magic because it's rooted in human psychology that's as old as time itself. The less you do of it, the more respect you get. The less you chase, the more they pursue. The less available you are, the more they value your time. But here's the truth that no one tells you. You have to be willing to feel like your heart is breaking for about 30 days while your children adjust to the new you. Most parents crumble at day 5 when their child seems distant. They panic and go right back to old patterns. Don't be those parents. Margaret wasn't. She sat in that discomfort. She let the silence stretch. She stopped filling every gap with advice, with worry, with her overwhelming love that had somehow become suffocating. And something beautiful happened. Her daughter started reaching out, started asking questions, started seeing her mother not as a needy presence, but as a person worth pursuing. By the end of this, you'll know exactly what Margaret did. But more importantly, you'll understand why it works so powerfully that it feels almost unfair. And once you see the psychology behind it, you'll never go back to begging for respect again. Because you deserve so much more than that. And deep down, your children know it too. Step 1. Stop chasing their approval. Here's what most parents do wrong when their kids start pulling away. They try harder. They call more. They give more advice. They remind their children of all the sacrifices they made. They bend over backwards to keep the peace. But here's the truth nobody talks about. The more you chase respect, the less you get. I know this hurts to hear. You raised these people. You taught them right from wrong. You deserve better. But demanding respect? That's like demanding someone love you. It just doesn't work that way. Margaret learned this the hard way. For months after that Christmas dinner incident, she kept trying to fix her relationship with her son. She'd call him, send thoughtful texts, offer to help with his kids. His response? Even more distance. Then something clicked. Margaret realized she was teaching her son that his disrespect was acceptable. Every time she chased after him, she was saying, "It's okay to treat me this way." So she stopped. What Margaret did next surprised everyone, including herself. She stopped calling first. She stopped offering unsolicited advice. She stopped trying to prove her worth. And you know what happened? Nothing. At first, her son didn't call. Her daughter-in-law didn't text. It felt lonely. It felt scary. But Margaret had made a decision. She was going to respect herself, even if nobody else did. Step 2. Build a life outside of them. Here's where it gets interesting. Margaret started living again. She joined a hiking group. She took that art class she'd been putting off for years. She reconnected with old friends. She stopped waiting for her phone to ring. 3 months later, her son called her. "Mom," he said, "I've been thinking about what happened at Christmas. I was out of line." Margaret didn't lecture him. She didn't say, "I told you so." She simply said, "Thank you for calling, honey. I appreciate that." That conversation changed everything. But not for the reasons you might think. Here's what Margaret discovered, and what every parent needs to understand. People respect those who respect themselves. When you chase after someone's approval, you're sending a message. I need you to validate me. And when people sense that neediness, they pull away. It's not personal. It's human nature. Think about it. Who do you respect more? The person who constantly seeks your approval, or the person who's perfectly fine without it? Margaret's son started seeing his mother differently, not as someone who needed his attention, but as someone who had her own life, her own interests, her own worth. And that's when the magic happened. He started asking about her hiking trips. He got curious about her art classes. He began seeing her as a person, not just mom. If you're still with me, type living in the comments. I want to know you're getting value from this. And hit that subscribe button, because what comes next might be the most important part. Step 3. Set boundaries without being mean. Margaret's second breakthrough came when she learned to set boundaries without being harsh about it. Here's what used to happen. Her daughter would call her at 10 p.m., complaining about work for an hour. Margaret would listen, give advice, lose sleep, and then her daughter would ignore the advice anyway. One night, Margaret tried something different. When her daughter called at 10 p.m., Margaret said, "Honey, I'm winding down for the night. Can we talk about this tomorrow when I can give you my full attention?" Her daughter was shocked. "But Mom, I really need to talk." Margaret stayed calm. "I understand, and I want to help. Let's schedule a time tomorrow when we can really dive into this." The result? Her daughter started calling at reasonable hours. She began valuing their conversations more. She even started asking, "Is this a good time to talk?" Here's the lesson. When you don't protect your own time and energy, nobody else will either. Take Robert, another parent I know. His adult children interrupted him constantly, dismissed his thoughts, and criticized his lifestyle. At first, he stayed quiet. Not worth the fight, he thought. But silence taught them that their behavior was okay. Eventually, Robert changed. When interrupted, he'd say, "I'll continue when you're ready to listen." When disrespected, he responded, "You don't have to agree, but I expect respect." He made it clear, if they couldn't treat him well, he wouldn't engage. Over time, they changed. They respected his boundaries because he respected himself. So ask yourself, are you allowing their behavior? If so, it's time to draw the line. Step 4. Become emotionally independent. Now here's where Margaret's story gets really interesting. She realized she'd been making her children responsible for her happiness. When they called, she felt good. When they didn't, she felt worthless. That's a heavy burden to put on anyone, even your own kids. So Margaret made a radical decision. She decided to be happy whether her children called or not. She stopped checking her phone every 5 minutes. She stopped planning her days around their potential visits. She stopped living in waiting mode. And something beautiful happened. She started enjoying her life again. When her children did call, it was a bonus, not a necessity. She could be present with them because she wasn't desperate for their attention. Her middle son noticed the change first. "Mom, you seem different. Happier." Margaret smiled. "I am happier. I'm not waiting for my life to begin anymore." That conversation stuck with him. He started calling more often, not because she needed it, but because he wanted to be part of her joy. I remember Helen, another mother I knew. She gave everything to her kids. As they got older, she waited for their calls. When they didn't come, she called first, repeatedly. She told them how much she missed them, hoped they'd visit. Instead of pulling them closer, it pushed them away. They saw her as needy. One day, Helen stopped waiting. She got busy living, joined clubs, made new friends, focused on her happiness. And then, her children started calling. They saw her differently, with curiosity, admiration, and renewed respect. The lesson: the less you depend on them to feel needed, the more they'll value your presence. Step 5. Stop giving without appreciation. Margaret made one more mistake that almost ruined everything. It's easy to fall into the trap of giving endlessly, time, energy, money, even when it's not appreciated. But when kindness goes unrecognized, it loses its meaning. When you keep giving without acknowledgement, you don't build love, you build expectation. They stop being grateful. They start feeling entitled. And when you stop giving, they get upset. George, a generous father I knew, gave constantly. Financial help, favors, his time, whatever his kids needed, he was there. But they didn't thank him. They expected more. And when he finally needed their help, they were too busy. One day, George stopped. He said no more often. He stopped offering before being asked. At first, his children pushed back. But slowly, they began appreciating his efforts. They saw that his generosity was a gift, not a guarantee. During a family dinner, Margaret's youngest daughter made a comment about Margaret never being around anymore. Margaret's first instinct? To defend herself. To remind her daughter of all the years she'd devoted to her children. To list every sacrifice she'd made. She almost fell into the guilt trap. But then she caught herself. Instead of defending, she said, "You're right. I have been busy lately. I'm really enjoying this new phase of my life." No guilt. No defensiveness. Just truth. Her daughter was quiet for a moment. Then she said, That's actually really cool, Mom. Tell me about your art class. Here's the lesson. When you stop defending your choices, people start respecting them. So if your efforts go unnoticed, take a step back. Respect yourself enough to expect appreciation. Step 6. Master the power of strategic silence. Margaret's next breakthrough came when she learned the power of not always having something to say. Previously, if there was an awkward silence during family gatherings, Margaret would fill it. If someone made a passive-aggressive comment, she'd address it immediately. But she started experimenting with silence. When her son made a sarcastic comment about her new lifestyle, Margaret didn't respond. She just smiled and took a sip of her coffee. The silence stretched. Her son shifted uncomfortably. Other family members looked around. Finally, her daughter-in-law spoke up. Actually, I think it's great that you're doing so many interesting things, Margaret. Margaret had let someone else defend her without saying a word. Later, her son pulled her aside. Mom, I'm sorry about what I said earlier. I didn't mean it. Margaret hugged him. I know, sweetheart. That's when she realized. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. When children act disrespectfully, the instinct is to correct, lecture, or defend yourself. But often, that just fuels the behavior. Instead, pull back. Watch. Notice how they treat others. Notice how they respond when you don't react. Let your silence become a mirror. Silence is powerful. It creates space. And in that space, your children might begin to reflect on their own actions. When you speak, make your words count. Speak with calm, with purpose, and with clarity. You don't need to say a lot to be heard. You just need to say what matters. Step 7. Stop trying to fix everything. Parents are natural problem solvers. From scraped knees to broken hearts, you've been the fixer. But when your children grow up, continuing to solve all their problems can backfire. If you're always offering advice, jumping in to help, or rescuing them from their own mistakes, you might be sending an unintended message. You can't handle it without me. This can create tension. It makes them pull away or resist your guidance, even if they need it. Margaret learned this lesson when her middle son was going through a divorce. Previously, she would have jumped in, offered advice, tried to mediate, suggested solutions. But this time, she simply said, I'm here if you need me. I trust you to figure this out. Her son was surprised. That's it. No advice. Margaret smiled. You're a smart man. You'll make the right decisions. 3 weeks later, her son called her. Mom, I need to talk through some things. Can we grab coffee? By not jumping in to fix, Margaret had shown her son that she trusted his judgment, and that trust made him want her guidance. The lesson: let them figure things out. Be a guide, not a rescuer. Respect their journey, even if it includes mistakes. Ironically, the less you try to fix, the more they'll start coming to you, not out of need, but out of respect. Still with me? Type "trust" in the comments and let me know you're following along. Step 8. Forgive them, even without an apology. Here's the part of Margaret's story that surprised me most. Even after all these changes, her eldest son still occasionally treated her with disrespect. He'd interrupt her, dismiss her opinions, or make her feel small. And Margaret had a choice: hold on to the hurt, or let it go. She chose forgiveness, not because he deserved it, but because she deserved peace. She didn't wait for an apology. She didn't need him to acknowledge his behavior. She simply decided to release the resentment. And something incredible happened. Without the weight of anger, Margaret stood taller. She spoke more clearly. She radiated confidence. Her son began to notice. His mother wasn't reacting to his disrespect anymore. She wasn't getting defensive or hurt. She was just peaceful. That peace was more powerful than any argument. Slowly, his behavior began to change. Not because Margaret demanded it, but because she'd stopped giving it power over her. This might be the hardest step, but also the most freeing. Sometimes, children say or do things that hurt deeply. They may not realize it. They may not apologize. But carrying that pain can turn into resentment, and resentment builds walls. Forgiveness isn't about excusing their behavior. It's about choosing peace over pain. It's saying, I release this for me, not for them. When you let go of the emotional weight, you stand taller. You speak more clearly. You live more freely. And when your children see that you've moved on, without bitterness, without blame, they may begin to soften. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength. And sometimes, it's the first step toward restoring respect. Step 9. Avoid the guilt trip trap. Many parents try to win back their children's respect by reminding them of all the sacrifices they made, the sleepless nights, the school fees, the dreams they put on hold. And while all of that is true and deeply meaningful, using guilt as a tool rarely creates respect, it creates distance. Here's the hard truth. Your sacrifices were real, but your children didn't ask for them. They benefited from them, yes, but constantly bringing them up can feel manipulative. And when people feel manipulated, they shut down. Margaret almost fell into this trap during a tense conversation with her daughter. Her daughter had said, "Mom, you're being selfish. You never used to be like this." Margaret's first instinct was to remind her daughter of every sacrifice she'd made, every opportunity she'd given up, every sleepless night. But she caught herself. Instead of saying, "After everything I've done for you," she said, "I know I've changed. I'm proud of the mother I was, and I'm proud of the woman I'm becoming." Her daughter was quiet. Then she said, "I guess I'm just not used to you having your own life." That honest response opened a door that guilt never could have. Instead of guilt trips, try this. "I know I gave a lot, and I'm proud of that. But I'm not asking for anything back, just mutual respect." Let go of the guilt trips. Let your dignity speak for itself. You don't need to remind them of your worth. Just live it daily. Step 10. Create a ripple effect. Here's what nobody tells you about earning respect. When you start respecting yourself, it creates a ripple effect. Margaret's changes didn't just affect her children. They affected her grandchildren, her neighbors, her friends. People started seeing her differently. At her granddaughter's school play, instead of sitting in the back, trying to be invisible, Margaret sat in the front row. She'd earned the right to be there. At family gatherings, instead of rushing around serving everyone, she participated in conversations. She shared her opinions. She took up space. Her children began introducing her differently. Not as just my mom, but as my mom who's taking art classes and hiking mountains. They were proud of her, and that pride translated into respect. 6 months after that Christmas dinner incident, Margaret's son called her. "Mom," he said, "I want you to know something. You've inspired me to start living more fully. I've been so focused on work that I forgot to actually enjoy my life." Margaret smiled. "That's wonderful, honey. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to take guitar lessons. I've always wanted to learn." That conversation brought tears to Margaret's eyes. Not because her son was finally respecting her, but because she'd shown him how to respect himself. The respect you earn isn't just for you. It's for your children too. When you start respecting yourself, you're teaching them to respect themselves. When you set boundaries, you're showing them how to set boundaries. When you pursue your own happiness, you're giving them permission to pursue theirs. So here's what you can do starting today. Step 1. Stop chasing their approval. The next time you catch yourself bending over backwards to please your children, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to, or because I need their validation? Step 2. Plan one thing for yourself this week. Something that has nothing to do with your children. A hobby, a social activity, something that brings you joy. Step 3. Set one small boundary. Maybe it's not answering the phone after 9 p.m. Maybe it's saying no to a request that doesn't work for you. Start small, but start. Step 4. Practice emotional independence. Stop checking your phone every 5 minutes waiting for their call. Plan your day around your own schedule, not theirs. Step 5. Expect appreciation. If your efforts go unnoticed, take a step back. You don't have to stop giving, but you can stop giving without acknowledgement. Step 6. Practice strategic silence. The next time someone makes a comment that would normally trigger your defensiveness, try saying nothing. See what happens. Step 7. Let them solve their own problems. The next time they come to you with an issue, instead of jumping in with solutions, ask, what do you think you should do? Step 8. Forgive one thing. You don't have to forget. You don't have to pretend it didn't hurt. But for your own peace, choose to let go of one resentment. Step 9. Drop the guilt trips. The next time you're tempted to remind them of your sacrifices, choose dignity instead. Step 10. Live your example. Be the person you want them to become. These aren't huge changes, but they're powerful ones. Let me share something with you that I think Margaret would want you to know. This isn't really about your children at all. It's about you and how you see yourself. You are not just someone's mother. You are not just someone's caregiver. You are not just someone's helper. You are a complete person with your own dreams, interests, and value. And when you start living like that, the world, including your children, will treat you like that. Margaret's story started with a painful Christmas dinner, but it didn't end there. It ended with a woman who rediscovered her worth, reclaimed her voice, and rebuilt her relationships, not by demanding change, but by becoming the change. Your story can have the same ending. The question is, when will you start writing it? If this resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more content that honors your wisdom and experience. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Most importantly, go live the life you've been waiting for. Your children are watching. Show them how it's done. That's it for today. I'll see you in the next one.